Welcome to the Life After 50 show, helping you navigate the second half of your life. Today's show is sponsored by Find Houston Senior Care, your one-stop shop for everything senior care and senior living in the greater Houston area. Visit findhoustonseniorcare.com today. And now, here's your host, Catherine Watson. Welcome, everybody, to the Life After 50 show. I'm your host, Catherine Watson, and I bring you different guests every week to help you on your journey navigating the second half of your life. So today we're joined by a very special guest. She comes to us from across the pond because most of my viewers are in Houston, and Jennifer Bute, Dr. Jennifer Bute, I might say, is really a treasure to have. I'm so excited to have her on the show today because she brings a different perspective. Not only has she been a medical doctor for, I think, 25 years of her life, but she also has dementia. And so she can give you the view from a doctor's point of view and a person living with dementia's point of view. And I think that is invaluable. So welcome to the show, Jennifer Bute. I'm delighted to have you.
Thank you.
And today we're going to be talking about bringing hope in dementia. And I had one other guest that had dementia on the show recently. I want to bring more guests like this on our show to help you understand that dementia is not a death sentence. Yes, it is a disease that is progressive, and eventually you probably will die from dementia or dementia symptoms. But it is not something that, okay, I've got dementia today, I just have to stop living. It's not that at all. And that's why I wanted to bring Dr. Bute on today. And Jennifer, can you talk to us a little bit about why you are so passionate about dementia? Tell us a little bit about your background story.
Well, my father had dementia, so I know a bit of how it affects families. And of course, I had patients with dementia. And then when I developed it myself and had to retire early, I wanted to use my skills for dementia. My aim when I was working was that all my patients had always been to enable them to be the best they could be with what they had in the way of physical, mental, and emotional resources. But if only I'd known then what I know now. For example, with my father who had dementia, I used to try and make him understand when he was no longer able to. I never told him he was wrong, which he often was. But I could have distracted him or got him to talk about his incorrect facts. I could have shown him photos of people that he knew in the past and got him to tell me about them. I did my best, but it could have been so much better.
And, you know, Jennifer, that is so true. I want caregivers to understand you're doing the best you can with the knowledge you have at the time. And now we're giving you more knowledge so that you can do even better. And that's what this show is about today. It's about giving you more knowledge so that you can do better. So, you know, we look back, and I know I cringe sometimes when I think of some of the ways that I treated my poor mother-in-law, who was like my best friend. And I got frustrated with her, and I was not always kind in the beginning because I didn't understand what was happening. And so that's really important. So I applaud you for coming on here and telling us about this and telling us what we need to know from the inside out, so to speak. So Dr. Bute, you talk about 3 basic principles. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. The first is there's always a reason in dementia for everything: behavior, confused speech or lack of it. There are always triggers for meltdowns. For example, infections make dementia far worse. Or it might just be the batteries in your hearing aid need replacing. We mustn't assume that everything is just dementia. There might be more to it. And the second principle is that feelings remain when facts are forgotten. You see, it's not where they went or who with, it's how did you make them feel?
Yes.
The emotions are stored in a different part of the brain. They're stored in the amygdala, which is never affected by dementia. Whereas memories are stored in the hippocampus, which is certainly affected by dementia. And then the third principle is that patterns continue. Patterns and skills, we can relearn some things. We might not do things as well as we could, but we need to make use of these skills. For example, I used to write health leaflets, so now I write leaflets about dementia.
Great.
A story to illustrate these three principles. When I first arrived in the dementia inclusive village, where I've been living for the last 10 years, amongst other people with dementia, I was called to see a lady in the lounge who I was told was kicking off. I didn't know anything about her. I didn't know her name. She was surrounded by a group of people who were telling her to be quiet. And she was shouting and flailing her arms around. So I told them all to go away. And I knelt down in front of her. She was so surprised because I was standing over her. So she stopped talking and she looked at me. So I smiled at her. Well, everyone else had been glaring at her. And she smiled back, because people usually do. So I said, "Oh, what a lovely smile you've got." And I touched her hand and held it. And she smiled even more. And I said, "Oh, thank you. You've made my day." Well, she stopped creating, shall we say. And when I left, the staff and people who didn't know much about things then said to me, "What on earth did you say to her to shut her up?" I said, "I didn't. I made her feel that she was important." I never found out the reason for it, but she was used to behaving suitably. So all those three principles were illustrated there.
I love that. I love that story. That is so, so important. I love your three principles. I'm going to write those down. Those are amazing and really important. I know with my own mother-in-law, she used to talk about going on trip. We would take her to, say, a restaurant, and then she'd tell somebody that we had taken her to New Orleans. You know, and at first my husband would get really frustrated with her. You know, "No, mother, we didn't go to New Orleans. And don't you know we went to the restaurant, blah, blah, blah," you know. And finally, one day I got him, I said, "Calm." I said, just go with it. Just go with it. And so we got into the feeling, "Oh, wasn't that fun? What did you like best about our trip?" And she would talk about past trips that she'd had to New Orleans. And she began to just come out of her shell and smile, and she was happy, just like the lady in your story. I love that. It's about the feelings, and I think that's what most people forget. The feelings don't go away. They're still there. The emotions are still there. And we need to tap into those emotions and tap into those positive emotions. I love that. So you talk a lot about music too. You talk about how important music is. And we've all probably heard, or a lot of us have heard, the importance of music. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and your experience with it?
Yes, well, we're all programmed, aren't we, for music from conception in our mother's womb. You know, the rhythm of her heartbeat, the rhythm of her walking, her talking, her singing. And all through, as we grow up, it stimulates the right side of the brain, and singing stimulates the left side. So they work very well together. Music releases emotions and feelings. It brings back memories. And even in advanced dementia, it helps people remember who they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's comforting. It can enable the person to eat more if they're not eating well. It can enable them to cooperate with washing and dressing. It can bring enjoyment, stimulate even parts of the brain. It releases dopamine, which reduces agitation and anxiety. It can give pleasure, joy. Cortisol gets released, and that helps our immune system. It can relieve pain. It can help repair damaged tissues. It can help motivation. After all, if we hear marching music, don't we tend to
Exactly
march? It's so important. And that's why I always start my memory groups with singing and music and the rhythm of a well-known poem. It's so important. I would also, after a music session, that is when it's easier to enable people to talk when they couldn't talk before. Let me just tell you another story.
Sure.
I was visiting over in our advanced dementia unit, and as I often did, as I can't do so much at the moment with COVID, and I was talking to a lady, and I saw a gentleman that was so difficult to get to talk, and he was lying there with his head in his hands on a table. Oh dear. And suddenly someone came in and turned on the radio, and he suddenly woke up and he waved to me. Hello. I thought, goodness.
Wow.
So I got up and went over to him, and we had a perfectly normal conversation.
Interesting.
Somebody came in and turned the wireless off, and it was as if a switch had gone off. He was back to.
Wow.
It was very dramatic. It was absolutely amazing.
That is amazing. That is really amazing. Yeah. So music is powerful. Now, it depends on, everybody is different in their likes and dislikes of music. I learned this years ago. Dr. Bute, I worked as a massage therapist about 25 years ago. And I had a client that was on my table. She came every week, a very quiet, demure lady. Never said anything bad about anybody, just a very sweet, demure lady. And I had to make a quick phone call. So I told her, I said, I'm going to turn on the music and I'll be right back in about 5 minutes. She said, okay. So I put on Gregorian chants. I love Gregorian chants. They make me feel good. Let me tell you, when I came in there in 5 minutes, the lady was fit to be tied. She was sitting up on the table saying, turn that off. And I mean, screaming it. This was so out of character for her. And I think that's when I first realized that music is very personal. And what may make you happy may make me really upset. And I think that's something to remember with using music with dementia patients, is paying attention and trying to see which type of music stimulates.
Absolutely right.
Yeah. I had a dementia client one time that she only wanted to listen to country and western. So we play country and western. Yeah. So, Dr. Bute, how can we prevent or improve dementia?
Yes, well, we can't necessarily completely prevent it. Sometimes it's in the genes, but less than people think, I think. But there was an interesting study some years ago called the Framingham Heart Study, which was really to do with heart disease. But they also found out that the factors that improved heart disease also improved dementia. And in fact, the incidence of dementia has almost halved in the last 40 years.
Wow.
Prevalence has gone up because the number of people in the world has gone up.
Right.
The incidence has definitely gone down. And they found out that we needed cognitive stimulation, diet and exercise and all this kind of thing. So I try to make it simpler, and I say you have to get on your sledge with a bit of musical accompaniment. So sledge is spelled S-L-E-D-G-E. So the beginning and the end, S-E, stands for social engagement. You must continue to be socially engaged. And so many people with dementia hide themselves away. It's not good. And then the E No, the L. Sorry, I've got muddled. The L stands for laughter.
Ah.
Laughter enables so much. I've seen people in my memory groups who say very little, and you get them laughing their heads off, and they can talk. It's tell me about their childhood. It's wonderful. So laughter is so important. And then the E is exercise, enjoyment, and all that kind of thing. I think many of us had teachers that walked up and down when they were talking, didn't they? Or lecturers that walked up and down, because talking does help to engage the brain. So that's always good, isn't it? And then D is to do with diet. We know that with heart disease and diabetes, don't we? In fact, there was research just this last week from Sheffield saying that if you're overweight, it makes your dementia worse.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And G is a bit of a, in the sledge, is a bit of a cheat. I couldn't think of anything else. It stands for the cognitive stimulation, which is different from doing the same thing over and over again. It's different to that. It's the much and wider thing. And that's why I run what I call Japanese memory groups, which is something I heard about Japanese because I heard it from a Japanese professor. He was talking about things and the difference it had made. And I realized he was just talking about the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. And he found that if we did all that in the same period of time on a regular basis, it would actually improve or slow down the progress of dementia. And I certainly know that's true in the Japanese memory groups that I run where I am.
Interesting. So you do a lot of reading and you do a lot of writing. That's obvious. You are up to date on all the latest studies in dementia.
Well, it's a pattern that I'm used to, you see. It's a pattern.
And you have your blog, and we're going to put up the link so that you can read and follow Jennifer's blog and get more information in a few minutes. But so what would you say, is there any one thing that's more important than another in preventing or improving dementia? Do you think diet is more important, or exercise, or does it have to be all together?
Well, it's a combination, really, but I do passionately believe that the cognitive stimulation helps, and the acceptance. Let me think. There's another story I can just tell you. I love telling stories.
Yes.
I got called again, as I used to, and to see someone with advanced dementia who'd been very, very aggressive. I didn't know why, but I had possibly an idea because I did know her quite well. And when she saw me coming, she said, "Oh, hello, Aunt Maud." Well, I didn't say, "Oh, don't be so stupid, I'm not Aunt Maud." I said, "Well, let's go into the lounge and have a chat then. It'd be nice to see you again." So we went into the lounge, and she said she thought we were in New Zealand. She looked out of the window and she said, "Oh, yes, that's so and so." I've never been to New Zealand, but I didn't, say anything, of course. And she started talking about her brother. She said, "He's coming to see us. He's due any minute now." Well, I knew that he died a long time ago. So I didn't say anything about that. I said, "Tell me about how you remember him when he was a young boy." Got her to talk about him. So I was accepting, where she was and what she thought about everything. And after some time, she said, "He's dead, isn't he?" And I smiled and I said, "Yes." She said, "Did you know?" I said, "Yes, but I love listening to you telling stories about him." So, people with advanced dementia, we have to accept them and engage with where they are. And if we do that, get engaged with them when they're time traveling, is what I call time traveling, they often can then come back to our reality as well.
I love that. And it reminds me of a story with my mom when she had severe dementia. She was bedbound for the last 2 years of her life. And I was one of her caregivers. And the week that I was there, one of the weeks that I was there, I walked in and I sat down next to her, and she looked at me kind of with a quizzical look on her face. And she said, "You look a lot like my daughter." And that was the first time she didn't recognize who I was. And I just rolled with it. I looked at her and I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Well, tell me about her." And then I got a kick out of listening to her tell me about me. And then, just like in your story, towards the end of the conversation, she looked at me and she said, "You're my daughter, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes, I am." So it is amazing when you can learn to, I call it going with the flow. Just go with the flow of
Yeah.
what the conversation is, and you'll be amazed at where it might lead you.
Yes.
And
And be
it will
flexible.
be delightful.
Yes. And be flexible, even with getting people to talk. Just one
Mhm.
more story before we get on to the last question, if I can.
Absolutely.
I went to visit my cousin who had,
Mhm.
well, his wife had dementia. And when we arrived at her place, her husband, my cousin, said to me, "I'll go make her some tea. You can stay with her, but she won't say a word to you. She doesn't talk anymore." Well, so I said to her, "Oh, lovely to see you. You know, it's so long, since I last saw you, and a lovely place you've got here. How long have you lived here?" I thought, help. I said, "I'm
Mm.
sorry. I shouldn't have asked you a question. Oh, I'm so sorry." And she roared with laughter. Well, that's good, isn't it? So I turned my back on her deliberately, because if we get asked questions, we tend to freeze inside. So I turned my back on her and started looking at the things around her room and talked about things, and someone talked about a picture, and I was just about to talk about another picture, and I heard a voice behind me saying, "Oh, we bought that picture in Hong Kong," and told me all about the circumstances.
Mm.
And she just stopped talking when her husband, my cousin, came back in with a tea. He said, "Oh, I'm sorry you've had to just stand there looking at the pictures, in silence, doing nothing." I said, "Oh, no. I've been hearing all about how you bought that picture in Hong Kong and the circumstances." He almost dropped the tray.
Amazing.
So
That's amazing.
sometimes when we get it wrong, it can actually help, can't it?
Yes, it can. Oh. Jennifer, you talk about having an aim for every contact. What do you mean by that?
Well, in the days before COVID, I always aimed, it's feelings. Feelings are so
Mm.
important. I would try and touch them, on their hand, on their shoulder, somewhere, because often people with dementia are just longing for touch. In fact,
Mhm.
one care home I visited um, actually put touch in their care plans.
Mm.
I thought that was brilliant. And, when we meet someone, we don't say, "Do you remember who I am?" We talk about, it's the we. "I remember when we did so and so," enabling us to talk along with us. So the aim with every contact is to make someone feel valued,
Mm.
reassured, and encouraged. Because even if they don't remember you visited, they will certainly remember the feelings afterwards.
That is so true. That is so true. They will remember the feelings. People always remember how you made them feel. Absolutely. Well, this has been a delight. I want to put up now Dr. Bute's book that she has written. And can you find that on Amazon?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, Amazon and imagine Barnes and Nobles, wherever books can be found these days. All right, so we're going to put that information up for you right now. Let me take this off. There we go. So it's Dementia from the Inside, a doctor's personal journey of hope. Okay. All right. So I want to make sure that everybody knows how to get in touch with you, how to read your blog. This is the website, and it is gloriousopportunity.org. Dr. Bute has a blog on it. Do you do a blog daily, weekly? How is it done?
No, that the website up there has all my videos on it.
Okay.
And that kind of things. It should be quite clear, and cartoons for children and so on. And at the bottom of the first page, there's a link which takes you to my weekly blog. Every Friday,
Okay.
I produce a weekly blog to help people understand or talk about something that's happened here in order to help people. It's about, things and other people and positive things rather than what I've been doing.
Right. Wonderful. Wonderful. I love it. So I implore you, if you're watching this, reach out to Dr. Jennifer Bute. She seems to be a wealth of knowledge, and she's got an insider's view of it. So she can give us a lot of help on this journey, especially if you're one of the family caregivers. I know a lot of the people who listen to this broadcast are caring for somebody with dementia, or maybe they're suspecting it in their spouse, or maybe even in themselves, and they're not sure what to do next. I would highly recommend that you go to Dr. Bute's website. You can watch her videos. You can click on the blog and go to her blog and read that. You can reach out and get information and help. There's so much that we are still learning about this disease and how to help people. But I think you said the really most important thing is to remember that it's about the feelings. It's always about the feelings, because people may not remember what you told them, but they will always remember how you made them feel. And that goes for people with dementia and without dementia. We remember how somebody made us feel. So you made me feel fabulous today, and I'm delighted to have you. So thank you so much for being on the show again.
Thank you, Catherine. It's been a joy. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for joining us on the Life After 50 show, where we help you navigate the second half of your life. Join us every Wednesday live on Facebook, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And don't forget to visit findhoustonseniorcare.com and the senior-conference.com.